All right, you guys, happy Friday. We are going on a journey today. It's going to be a good episode when I start that way. I'm looking at everything. The pieces are coming together. I'm asking myself, you're asking yourselves, is this a scam of biblical proportions? Emphasis on the biblical, because from the very beginning of this investigation, I always said there was something wrong with Turning Point Faith. That's when Turning Point made a turning point, so to speak. It feels a bit psyopy, like a psychological operation, almost as though faith is being intentionally hijacked. Dr. Frank Turek, by the way, went on another rant about me. He's getting to sound a little bit like Bobby Boucher's mom. If you guys have seen Waterboy, everything is the devil. Candace Owens is the devil. He says I'm Satan because I'm confusing. It's just crazy how the truth can confuse people. What is it about the truth that is confusing people in this moment? Now, before we get into Frank Turek, I first have to share with you a very scary story, something that happened the day after Charlie's memorial. And yes, it's going to include another text message from him, this time sent on September 9th. So welcome back to Candace. You know, Turning Point has a lot of money, enough money to have not just a PR person, but then to have an entire orbit of people who are being paid to push their talking points, like Paramount Tactical. They also have a crisis PR team. I was told that actually by Erica, that they hired a crisis PR team because, Andrew had made all those mistakes. But I have to say, all of those people appear to be in struggle city at this moment. They are struggling to come up with a way to explain a way to explain the calls that we saw, the Zoom calls that we shared, the laughter, the smiling. They're wondering how exactly they can go about gaslighting the public into believing that all of that is perfectly normal 5.5 days after your husband was publicly executed in front of the world, which is why I want to shout out the Daily Mail, okay? Because no one has been working harder than the Daily Mail to invert reality. And I got to tell you, this was a difficult one for them. It was not easy, but they did their best with this article. Check out this headline. The definitive truth about Erica Kirk's tears, the leather pants, and her new fortune as Candace Owens drops, quote unquote, giggling phone call in wake of Charlie's death. Well, I said it's the definitive truth. Look no further. Nothing says I'm the truth. Quite like when a journalist comes out and says it, right? It could be nothing else. No way this is going to be a lie. So definitive. You don't have to look any further. Here's what the article says. This is amazing. This is funny. This will lighten your mood. Quote, the Daily Mail has spoken with several experts on grief and so-called grief policing about the recent obsession that many Americans have developed with Kirk's behavior as a new widow. Love that already. Love that we have a term, grief policing. I love that you can always rely on a new psychological phenomena to be spun out by the media. The problem is actually you guys for noticing. And then it says, and as her critics will likely be disappointed to learn, those experts say judgments about Kirk reveal less about her true state of mind, and much more about the broader national discomfort with death, especially the kind of violent, widely broadcast killing that took her husband down. Quote, this is a quote from an expert, guys. It reflects our mourning avoidant, emotion-phobic culture where people tend to make all sorts of quick, uninformed judgments about how people are supposed to grieve, says Dr. Alan Wolfelt, a Colorado-based death educator and grief counselor. Shout out to Dr. Alan, because this is a tough job. And he's saying a lot of words. He's doing what he's learned at school, is just say a bunch of words, call people a bunch of names. He's like, this is supercalifragilisticexpialidociousness. Yeah. The ism, the abracalabradocious abracadabra, abracadabra, doobity-doobity-dabda ism is what everyone's suffering from. Anyways, it goes on, the article, the experts, so step aside, losers, the experts are here. The experts that the Daily Mail spoke to were quick to note that Kirk has been an easy target for people who don't share her or her late husband's staunch political or religious views. There is, they say, also an aspect of Sexism at play. Another quote, another therapist. This guy says, widows are uniquely grief policed, their appearance, their tone, and behavior, said LA grief therapist Bidwell Smith. Okay, Bidwell. He says there's this cultural belief that a good widow should look really collapsed and devastated, but grief is not a performance and survival is not a moral failure. When grieving, people can hyperfunction, as Kirk has appeared to do. People throw a lot of negative judgment on that, thinking that they feel nothing, when internally, privately, they may be collapsing and not really show it, Bidwell Smith added. Dr. Wolfe similarly suspects that Kirk's insistence on getting up and getting dressed and putting on makeup and fighting for something she believes in every day is a classic emotional survival tactic. And so first I want to say, that's amazing. When I actually thought about that, when they're like, the problem is you and you guys are sexist, is first and foremost, it was the women that came out first and said, I don't like this for some reason. I want to remind you of that. Secondly, I had to go backward in my own mind because I'm close to this situation. And I was like, maybe there is some objective sexism here. Let me think about that. And then I remembered another death that deeply impacted the entire world. Literally, I did not know this man, never met this man, and felt like I knew him. And I boohoo cried in my bed when Kobe Bryant died in the helicopter. I remember this day, like exactly where I was, crying hysterically because I was a huge Lakers fan growing up. And I just always admired Kobe Bryant. This was before I was Catholic. He's Catholic. And I never for a single second do I remember the conversation being about his wife being inappropriate. In fact, there was a memorial. It didn't happen 11 days later. It happened a month later. And it was, there were no fireworks, there were no pyrotechnics, she was aggrieved. And I went back and I listened to this speech and I had to stop watching it because I almost cried again. It was a eulogy. It was parts of Kobe that no one could know other than his wife when she spoke about her daughter and what she would never get to experience because her daughter was now gone. She spoke about not being able to be at her wedding. I mean, I can't even talk about it because it was, again, you should challenge yourself to go watch that speech. You should go watch Vanessa's speech at the memorial and see if you recognize some differences, because I realized that I was so traumatized by Charlie's, I actually wasn't being objective. I wasn't being objective. And realizing these things early on that I think some of the public was recognizing right away. And something else that is interesting about Vanessa is she went through the anger period. Vanessa was suing everybody. She was suing people who released the photos. She was suing the helicopter company, even though the guy who ran the company was actually the one flying the plane. He died. I actually remember thinking, wow, like I personally thought this is not going to bring him back, but I understood that phase of anger. She was angry at the sheriff's department. Like, you knew what time it was. Like, talk about an investigation. She was doing that. Nobody was invited into her home, least of all the New York Times. And when she gave her first interview, just so you know, that wasn't until 4 months later in April. And they were not invited into her home. And it was because she was accepting, on behalf of Kobe, him being inducted into the Hall of Fame. So I just wanted to give you some compare and contrast, because the sexism thing is completely ridiculous. And you could just completely sidestep that. And another thing that I wanted to point out as I was kind of examining that was I went back and I went, wow, this speech is so beautiful. And I'm learning so much about who Kobe was, because to me, he was a basketball player and he was a leader. And I love that he spoke different languages. And there were so many things I loved about Kobe. I just thought he was brilliant. But I didn't know him. And when she's giving all of these examples and the things that he would do around the house and who he was and who they were, by the end of that, felt like I knew Kobe behind the scenes. And then I sort of went back and I revisited and just read the transcript of Erica's speech. And I am actually, in retrospect, quite amazed by how much was really about Turning Point USA and what was going to happen going forward. And you don't actually, when you read the transcript, learn anything about Charlie other than Turning Point USA and what's going to happen going forward. Even in the first speech that she gave next to his chair, she talks about Turning Point USA and what we can do for the organization, right? As if comparing it, if Vanessa got up and said, here's what you can do for the Lakers organization today. Here is what the Lakers are going to do. Lakers 2.0, here's the Lakers. This is what Kobe loved to play basketball, and here's what you can do for the sport of basketball. I think that is the reason people were immediately off-put, because it wasn't a eulogy. It wasn't speaking about those parts and those pieces of him. Yeah. And yeah, watching it in retrospect was something different. And I'm going to let you listen to, again, this piece about Turning Point USA. What was this, 36 hours after Charlie was assassinated? Maybe it was 48 hours after he was assassinated. Take a listen.
My favorite too, but my husband's favorite word in the English language was earn. He would call all of you to be people of action who earn the future America deserves. So to all of the young people who felt inspired by my husband's faith and hard work, all of you already know what Charlie would want you to do. You know. You know. If you're in high school or if you're in college, go find your local Turning Point USA chapter. Join it. Stay involved. He wants you to make a difference. And you can. You can. The movement's not going anywhere, and it will only grow stronger when you join it. If there isn't a chapter, you can't find one, then start one. There is no excuse. You can start one. And as my husband used to say in this room, every single day, if you want to get involved, the best way you can do that is going to TPUSA.com. That's what he would say every day from this chair. Every single day. I watched his show every day, and he would always say, if you want to get involved, go to TPUSA.com. If you're a pastor, join our movement at TPUSA Faith. And if you're a parent, I highly recommend that you come to America Fest in December. Sign up right now for that, because we would love to see you. I would love to see you. Charlie would. He'll be there. He'll be there in spirit.
That's 3 web addresses. Here's how you can sign up. Here's what you can do. And I now, in retrospect, I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. And then it's the same thing with the speech. It's a lot about Turning Point USA and Turning Point USA as if that's just who he was. Like there was no person other than a business. And I'm telling you that because I now want to pivot into telling you, I think, kind of a scary story heading into the weekend. A little terrifying story. Maybe because I'm a little biased here. Okay, Catholic, and this just disturbs me a little bit more. And I promise, I'm wearing this sweatshirt. I told the priest I would chill. We had somebody message us and say, you should be making these sweatshirts. And it's real. I do actually, I'm being always sincere when I say that. But this is a story that involves a priest. And I promise after this, I'm going to chill for the weekend because I think this story is so crazy. I need time to process it because, again, it involves Catholics and we're up. Sorry, guys. It brings me no pleasure to report. So Catholics, if you're watching, take a listen. I got an email from a woman, a Catholic woman, back in October, and the email did not sit right with me spiritually. There's a lot going on, though. I was obviously in survival mode mentally. I flagged the email. I filed it away in this inbox that I need to address this later. It's important. And I then decided to revisit it and to respond to the woman and to process what it was that had initially disturbed me. Now I'm going to read you this email, and I am going to protect information of people today. I'm not going to be giving out any names because it doesn't actually change the story any. This person wrote, "Dear Candace, firstly, thank you and may God bless you and protect you for everything that you do. I pray for you every day and I thank God for you bringing the light of truth and Christ to this world. I attended the memorial and I ended up sitting next to Father Blank. He was actually the priest that flew with Erica to Utah. He was with her when they called her that he did not make it. He prayed over him. She actually asked him to pray the rosary there at the hospital, and he said the homily at the private funeral the Friday before the memorial. Now, in hindsight, it is strange to me that he was just put in the crowd at the memorial, but then again, he may have wanted that. I was at the memorial having zero personal or prior involvement or engagement with Turning Point USA or anyone from there, and I ended up sitting next to Father Blank and then with Erica at Mass the next day. I truly believe it is complete divine intervention. I prayed at the time and each day after, exactly this. God, I see and feel you are leading me. I know there is a purpose. I don't know what it is or where you are taking me, but I'm following with complete surrender and faith to your holy will. I'll try to best email this with the relevant details, and I think that it may help. I was watching your podcast as I'm finishing up work, and I had to pause it when you played Alex Clark's interview because it honestly made my stomach hurt how untruthful what they were saying was. And I felt strong conviction to write you. I've never emailed a person I don't know in my life, but I'm following this conviction. I spent a good 8 hours sitting with Father Blank. I'm shy generally and was sitting with empty seats around me in the third row from the stage. So when I saw the priest walking by and looking like he didn't know where he was going, I said, "Hi, Father, I'm also Catholic. If you need a seat, this one's empty." Whether he wanted to or not, he sat down. He seemed like a holy priest, soft-spoken, but so sincere and genuine. He prayed in silence throughout and would smile and say, "Charlie wouldn't believe this," looking around the stadium. It was like he was going through a roller coaster of emotions right there. He shared stories of Charlie attending Mass and him spending a lot of time with Erica and Charlie. As Erica was talking on stage, Father held his hands towards her and was praying over her for protection and strength, tears going down his face from his stories and messages from Charlie that he showed me. It seemed like he was probably the closest person in that room to Charlie and to Erica, yet he was sitting with me like any other guest. Like I said, in hindsight, it just feels so off still. At some point during one of our conversations, we spoke about the daily Mass at his parish because I wanted to go on Monday before I flew back to Chicago. He said, yes, at 8:30 a.m. there would be Mass. To be honest, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it, but then I saw a text from him at 6:30 a.m. saying, "Hope to see you at Mass." I knew it was my sign to just make it work and go. There were about 6 people at the 8:30 a.m. Mass that Monday, the large church of blank. I sat in the first row and I felt God's presence so powerfully the entire Mass that I couldn't stop the tears from flowing. I didn't cry at the memorial, but I wept quietly the entire Mass. Afterward, I stayed to pray a while longer. Lights were starting to turn off and I looked back and I noticed a tall bodyguard in the back, along with Erica and a middle-aged woman that was sitting by her. At that moment, I went back to prayer and I said, "God, if you'd like for her and I to connect or speak, please bring us together. If not, I will pray for her and I'll head out." I did not want to disrupt her, but also I had an intense knowledge of how much God's hand was present throughout the last 2 days. A minute or two later, as I was still in prayer, I had a tap on my shoulder by a woman. I believed it was an assistant. I can't remember what it is she does. She said, "Would you like to join Erica?" Candace, at that moment, I thought, okay, God, I hear you. I've never had so much peace while blindly surrendering to God's will. Maybe I have, but I haven't ever seen it so clearly in action. I hugged Erica. I sat next to her in the last pew, and I just had the most beautiful conversation. She mentioned that Charlie went to Mass with her there, and that Father Don would open the church up for him there often when Charlie just wanted to pray and reflect without being disrupted, and that he was with her the entire time from Arizona to Utah, in the hospital, etc. I have so much I could share on all of the little miracles, but I just want to say that today I felt compelled to send this to you. And so I'm listening to my conviction and sending this, and I am hoping that the Holy Spirit and both of our guardian angels will direct this message as it is intended per God's will. I have to say, I felt more realness from Erica in my exchange with her in that church than from the memorial. I saw her at Mass again on Tuesday. I ended up staying an extra day because I had relics from St. Paul II that my mom wanted to give Erica flown there. I coordinated someone to fly it to me, and then I gave it to her. Okay. I am going to end it there. Now, why do you think that that email disturbed me and made me file it? Just check in the chat here. What is not right with that email? And I'll tell you, it wasn't the person who wrote it that disturbed me. I blanked out over a name because I'm going to tell you now that the person who tapped on her shoulder, who she thought was an assistant, was Stacy Sheridan. That was what disturbed me about the email and made me file it right away because I knew exactly what happened and I did not have the heart to tell her what had happened because I know Stacey Sheridan is. I know what I told Charlie about Stacey Sheridan. I've seen her work. I've been at events with her. I knew that Stacey would have only done that if the girl who was writing me this email had a boatload of money. Didn't even need to look up this person or the email. I knew that they had that girl clocked before she walked into the memorial. I don't think actually it was God that sat her where she was sat 3 rows in. She was amazed by all of this. Oh, I don't even know anybody here. Here I am. I don't even know Charlie. I don't know anybody. Turning point you're saying. Here I am sitting at the front. And oh my gosh, this moment. And you know, Erica won't even speak to this after Turning Point USA, but Stacey Sheridan, would you like access to the grieving widow? I knew, and I filed it. I knew something was wrong. And then when I went to go revisit all these things that I had filed and I saw this, I went, oh my gosh, this makes me so sick. And I knew that I had to reach out to this person and I had to say it. Hey, don't know anything about you, but I'm going to assume you have a lot of money, and it breaks my heart to tell you this, but you were targeted. They would have known everything about you. That's how they work. Before everyone is seated, Stacey Sheridan's job literally is to know everything about that person, their net worth. She'll know your dad's net worth, your mom's net worth. She would tell Charlie, she whispered in Charlie's ear, that person runs so-and-so, blah, 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 blah. And then Charlie will go have the conversation. That was the whole reason they brought her on. That's what Stacey's brilliant at. Smelling money, truly. And so I had a conversation. And I said, and actually, when we finally broke this conversation, she had already arrived at that conclusion. So that was back in October. She sent the email. And so my message to her, she said, yeah, I kind of figured this all out now. And I said, you got a lot of money? Yeah, got a lot of money. How much money we talking? Dad sold a huge business. She runs a massive business. They are wealthy, extraordinarily wealthy. And I said, now let's go through how this all really happened, because you were targeted, and I'd like to know how you ended up at the memorial. And so she tells me a story of how that all happened, and I'm going to walk you through it because I think it is one of the more disgusting and disturbing things that I've heard throughout the story. Maybe I'm taking it more personally because I am Catholic, and I'm happy to be biased in that way, but I think you will tend to agree with me here. So just so there's no confusion, she was obviously telling the truth. She even supplied evidence in the form of a text message that the priest that she was sitting next to had shared with her. This is Charlie's text message. He's on a group chat with Erica and the priest. And this is the morning of September 9th. Now, Erica has been telling the truth when she says that Charlie would send messages and have biblical verses. I have tons with Charlie. They were typically relevant to whatever we were going through, a verse of encouragement, to keep going, to keep fighting. And here's the message that he chose to share. Again, group chat between him and Erica, September 9th. It is 1 Corinthians, Paul's letter to the Corinthians, 16:9. And it reads, for a wide door for effective work has opened to me, and there are many adversaries. Just find that message in general to be interesting, because it is him acknowledging that his opportunities have bred him enemies. Who are the adversaries? I find that to be interesting. That message was shared. Anyway, so I said, how did you actually arrive? Because people were waiting in the rain for tickets, and so there had to be a little bit inside baseball here. And then she said, oh, well, actually, I was at a different event, a marketing event, when Charlie was shot, and was networking with some people that were involved. It was a conference event with some people that were orbiting around, like PBD's podcast. That part's not exactly that relevant to the story because they're marketing people. They're kind of doing their job. And that person then hooked her up directly with somebody that they said could help get her into the venue. She was so struck emotionally, stricken by the Charlie's assassination, like all of us were, that she just wanted to be a part of the memorial. And then just her luck, somebody said, oh yeah, I can get you in touch with someone that can get you through the door, and that's going to be great. And so I also just want to show you this because in retrospect, she reads it and she realizes that she was being manipulated, right? This is the message. Perfect. I'm going to introduce you via text to TPUSA's Blank, who traveled everywhere with Charlie, handling many of their big donors. Blank says that Erica has been getting more death threats every day. He's promised Erica that he will run point on raising money to cover the memorial service, which is going to cost approximately $6 million. Apparently, Trump had to get personally involved to secure the Cardinal Stadium, which was planning to host a large and lucrative RV show this weekend. So making up that lost revenue to the stadium is driving the high costs of this event. It's crazy what their team is going through. Right there, already emotional manipulation, right? This idea, you have to rescue Erica, she's not safe. And oh, by the way, it's going to be so expensive, this thing. She doesn't even see, she just thinks, oh my God, amazing, I can't believe this, and doesn't realize that this is like, we'll get you in, but we're expecting you to kind of write a check. And by the way, I do want to address that lucrative RV show this weekend. I went back on Wayback Machine, saved screenshots. There was no RV show that was on the calendar for this Cardinal Stadium. Has anybody been able to find this? We've been told the story a couple of times now that the White House got involved and secured the venue, and people started asking questions about how this was possible to turn around so quickly because there are, tons of policies in booking these sorts of venues. They don't do things last minute. This RV show, if you know something about it, you were supposed to attend and had tickets and got an email and said, hey, never mind, it's off. Please email more tips@CandaceOwens.com. I need to know more about this little RV show. Anyway, this idea that was going to cost them $6 million to make off the revenue. Obviously, we know they made a ton of money. They geofenced everybody's phones. I can't even imagine what just selling the data on that would have been worth. But interesting to know, this is how it gets started, okay? So then she's sitting in the third row, and she's now next to the priest. And I asked, what about the next? Let's go more specifically about how you got to church the next morning. Because that's interesting, right? Like, you struck up a conversation. You said that you struck up a conversation, whatever. And that the priest said, yeah, come to mass. Well, the part that she forgot is that he told her in this text, Erica might be there. Good morning. I hope to see you at 8:30 a.m. Erica may be there too. Okay. That's an interesting text from a priest. Now, she believes that this is a good guy, and that's great. And I hope deeply in my heart that that is true. But I am beginning to ask questions about that because there's a lot there that's happening. If I am correct, he also canceled his mass on September 10th. Give me just a second because I hear my phone is on. That he canceled his mass on September 10th on that morning. I'd like to know more. I genuinely would like to know more. And I don't understand if a priest is just trying to get you through the door on a Monday morning to go to mass, why you would say, Erica might be here. And also, why is it a might? You would know. You more than anyone would know. You've been with her every second of every day throughout all of this. You know whether or not she's going to be there. You, her, and Stacy have been rolling pretty deep. So I feel like you knew she was going to be there. That's my opinion. I genuinely hope I'm wrong, and I'm open to be wrong, but I have to tell you how I feel about this. Anyway, she was amazed by this, and she went, and then you know what happens next? She gets a little tap from Stacey Sheridan, who should burst into flames when she walks into a church, if we're being honest. Okay, this woman, but think about that. What moved Stacey Sheridan to tap on this person's shoulder? Erica told her to do that. Erica gave her permission to do that. Why would she randomly go and say, tap, tap, would you like to sit with the grieving widow? That would be the most inappropriate thing ever. Ever. If you're sitting with your friend and your friend is grieving their husband, you would not be like, let me go up to a rando that I don't know and see if they just want to chill with her. You would want her to have privacy. Okay, there's a conversation that took place. Do not play us for dummies. Don't do it. There was a conversation that took place between Erica and Stacey Sheridan, conversations that I have seen before between Charlie and Stacey Sheridan about who that woman is. That woman was targeted in that church. Okay, I don't care. Cut it. Do whatever you want to say. Put it on Instagram. Oh my God, clutch your pearls. I can't believe. Yes, you better believe it. This woman was targeted in a church after mass. It makes me sick. It really does. So anyways, she thinks it's all God. But let me tell you something. Where Stacey Sheridan is, we're going in the other direction. Okay, we're going in the other direction. And then she sits and Erica opens up to her. They're having this beautiful conversation. And she then arranges, she was so amazed by this that she organizes to get a relic from St. Michael, the same cave that sits behind me. And here's where I actually see God working, that this woman sent me this email and that of 50,000 emails coming in. I saw this email, I saved this email, and she happened to have, this is actually, I'm just thinking about this live. I got this relic. When was I in Wyoming? I got it in Wyoming from the priest in Wyoming. You're going to have to tell me. I feel like it was the first weeks of October, and this is when the woman sent me the email. So that's just something that, I'm sorry, I just had like a spiritual vibe about that also is the relic that she had and she gave to Erica. So St. Michael's doing a little bit of protection here. And I think that there is a reason that she had to go through this. Even sometimes when you're going through things like being scammed, there's a reason for that. And so this information came to me. She organizes St. Michael's relic, and she gets this to Erica. The next day at Mass, she doesn't get to speak to Erica because this time another top fundraiser at Turning Point USA met her there and said, hey, Erica wanted me to follow up with you. And she, again, was so amazed by God working that she decided to even message the priest afterward and thank him that she was able to get this relic to Erica. And I just want to read you this because, again, her and I might have different perspectives here, but she says, I will always cherish my time with you both so much. I'm in absolute awe of how God worked through me to what I believe was to give Erica those relics. The experience felt like me directly witnessing God working through each of us. I just wanted to send a quick note to share. Hope to see you soon, Father. God bless. And in response, the Father said, God bless. Thank you for sharing your wonderful words. God's fingerprints are all over what is happening. There is no doubt that your presence to Erica was a God moment for both of you. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. There's this, we have to protect Erica. This is God. This is God. What happens thereafter, I like even less. The intermediary, the person that delivered the relic, another top fundraiser for Turning Point USA, offered that he was going to be in the Chicago area. That's where she lives, in Illinois. And he says, hey, I'm going to be there already. Obviously, Charlie's from Chicago. I'm sure that was true. But I'd love to pop in and see you. And, we're all committed in this faith journey together. And that happens. And he meets her and he meets her father. And while he meets her, he then invites her to the big gala, the one at Mar-a-Lago, where they're going to raise like $42 million. And here's that message. He says, thank you for organizing dinner. It was great to spend time on the road with great Catholics. I had a wonderful time. And thank you for all the prayers, especially for Erica. Can I call you tomorrow regarding the gala? We would love to have you guys involved, but we can talk further. Erica repeated how much she loved meeting you. Again, why does this feel to me like manipulation? Like a bit of Erica really needed you. You were sent from God to Erica with Stacey Sheridan in the middle of it. Okay. Well, here's what happens next. She gets a little nudge when she does go down to Mar-a-Lago. She knows nothing about Mar-a-Lago and Palm Beach, and I find this part to be quite funny. Dark humor in this because I know everything about Mar-a-Lago, and it's like little Israel. It really is, and it's where a lot of the meetings take place. The Zionist donors, PragerU doing a gala down there makes perfect sense. They do that, and they were all over this. Suddenly, she's there, and she's meeting a different Turning Point USA team. Like she meets them at this church. It's Catholic. But she notices there's no Catholic discussion or presence. Rather, you got Dr. Frank Turek, and apparently, according to her, he's on stage and he's hitting not the Judeo. They're now editing their message because they're in a room with Jews, and suddenly, we don't want to talk about the Catholicism. We don't want to talk about faith. We don't want to talk about relics. We don't want to talk about St. Michael. No, wrong crowd for this. Shabbat shalom. Daddy's home. And so she says to the person she's like, what, why aren't you guys doing anything with the Catholic stuff? I felt, this was such a strong Catholic bond. And he kind of kicks the can down the road and says, oh, we're planning on doing stuff in the future. Like, not here. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom at Mar-a-Lago. And she's just like, no, something that this is not my thing over the, everyone's dressed to the nines. And she's like, I don't have an issue with Israel, but this feels like something else than what I experienced. And then what happens is they follow up with her, and they keep following up with her because they're looking to have a check, pretty much. We'd love to have a call, leave another message for your dad. I look forward to getting y'all involved. I hope all is well. I want to set up time to visit and discuss further support. Are you available the second or third week of February? Hi, I want to touch base and check in. Let me know if we could schedule a call. And she kind of just leaves him on red because she realizes, yeah, I think I was actually targeted. And she was targeted. But nothing, God lets everything happen. What I will say is that God will not be mocked. God will not be mocked. I'm a Latter-day Saint on a Monday. I'm a Catholic on a Tuesday. I'm Shabbat Shalom on a Wednesday. God will not be mocked. I see this for what this is, and there are no surprises anymore for me. A turning point faith, the infiltration, it's very clear, and there is something so especially sinister about hijacking people's faith and their emotion. And when she expressed that I normally, I'm a businesswoman, I have my guard up, but when it comes to faith and I'm thinking that this is all happening, I look back and I go, man, I didn't even process this, because you shouldn't have had to process that. No one should have had to have been thinking this way, that people were using our trauma and our emotions and our spirituality to manipulate us. Again, God will not be mocked. We'll take a break and be right back. All right, you guys, there is a war on truth right now. You feel it and I feel it. And the biggest weapon that they have, of course, is the algorithm, rewriting history and redefining morality to fit a broken secular agenda that has completely erased God from the conversation. That's why I use Magisterium AI. This isn't just about the past. It's also about how we live right now. I'm speaking about the tough questions that we all face, questions about suffering, marriage, and purpose in life. And unlike the other AI systems that are out there, Magisterium AI actually brings the receipts, meaning every single answer is backed by original sources, citations that you can click and verify for yourself. I'm talking about 2,000 years of wisdom from the saints, popes, and fathers of the church. It's a knowledge base that grows daily from their exclusive digitized work inside the pontifical universities in Rome. It's the #1 Catholic answer engine in the world for a reason. If you want to discover the intellectual depth and the peace that I have found in the Catholic faith, you should start here. Go to magisterium.com/Candace or download the app for free on iOS or Android. Use my discount code Candace to upgrade to Pro, and you'll get 25% off your first year. That's $2.99 per month. Peace and purpose for the price of a cup of coffee. It's a no-brainer. Visit magisterium.com/Candace. Also remind you guys about American financing, because between the grocery store and those skyrocketing insurance premiums, even with a steady job, more families are being forced to rely on high interest credit cards to cover expenses. If you're a homeowner caught in that cycle, carrying balances with interest rates in the 20s or even 30s, it's time to get some relief. Right now, mortgage rates are at a 3-year low, and my friends at American Financing are helping homeowners pay off that high interest debt at rates in the low 5s. Their salary-based mortgage consultants don't just push loans, they build exit strategies for debt. On average, they're saving their customers $800 a month. Plus, if you start today, you may even be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. There are no upfront fees or obligations to find out how much you could be saving. America's home for home loans is American Financing. Call 800-795-1210. Again, that's 800-795-1210, or visit americanfinancing.net/Owens, americanfinancing.net/Owens. I had to actually go back and check that to see, and she sent me that email on October 6th, and I received the relic on October 15th. So that's just really amazing that happened in October. Relics from the same cave where St. Michael appeared in Italy. Anyway, to, I guess, kind of stay in the same vein, Frank Turek, I've invited him on the show many times. He gives me Rabbi Barclay, who I had that debate with when I was over the Daily Wire. And I don't dislike Frank Turek, because it's just like they are interesting to hear them talk and explain things and kind of get incensed. And they seem worried about not what they're actually saying. Like there's something deeper that's triggering them. And he's been saying a lot about me, and I haven't said much about him. But I wanted to let you hear how he correlates me to Satan. Take a listen.
I think Candace Owens is completely lost any credibility when she's saying that certain dreams are where she's getting her information from. Okay. Yeah, there are dreams in the Bible, but there's always supernatural confirmation for those dreams. There's been no supernatural confirmation for Candace Owens' dreams. You can come up with any possibility you want. Possibilities are not evidence, ladies and gentlemen. We're supposed to follow evidence. And notice, I'll say this again. In fact, I just had a pastor. I was just talking to a pastor friend of mine. He was like, what do I say when, people are running down Erica Kirk? And I say the same thing that I say. Have you noticed that Jesus and the apostles say that Satan is a murderer, a slanderer, an accuser, a liar, and somebody that brings confusion? Have you noticed that we've had a murder, and then since then we've had slander, accusations, lies, and confusion? That's what spiritual warfare is, ladies and gentlemen. And for people who are slandering Erica and others, including me, and making accusations and lies and stirring up confusion without evidence, this is what Satan does.
Okay, just a follow-up question, Doc. Like, what do we mean that I'm allowed to have a dream? He's like, yeah, no, that happens all the time in the Bible when he remembers that he has to be Christian. And then he's like, but there's supernatural confirmation. What do I have? What's the supernatural confirmation that we're looking for? What do you want me to say? I had a dream which happened. And then what am I supposed to say? Like Charlie appeared in my house. Like, I don't know what he's talking about. That doesn't even make sense. That's why I just pivots and then starts going, Satan's a murderer. Yeah, we're kind of trying to figure out who murdered Charlie Kirk. Welcome to the show, Dr. Frank Turek. We're aware. Murder, when you see that act of murder and you see it in broad daylight, there's probably like a synagogue of Satan hiding behind it. And you guys just don't seem interested at all in going on this journey to figure out who killed Charlie Kirk, which is giving us a little bit of intuition that something's amiss. Again, going back to the example of Kobe Bryant's wife suing she didn't trust nobody. Everybody was getting sued. Okay. And I didn't even agree with some of her lawsuits. But darn if I didn't agree with the emotion of like a woman who feels like there needs to be justice served somehow for my loss. What would we have said if, I don't know, it would have been kind of weird if she, as soon as the helicopter thing, I forgive them. I forgive everybody involved. It's like, you got to get to forgiveness. You do have to get to forgiveness. And I'm sure that she's there now, but immediately after, you're skipping all the other phases of grief. You instantly accepted what happened within 5 days, maybe even sooner, that Charlie was gone. I don't know. I welcome this discussion with you. But yeah, Satan is a liar. We're tracking the Turning Point USA lies. You are basically confirming for us that everything that we're looking at is satanic. Kind of what we've been saying, right? I've been saying this is no longer about left versus right. This is good versus evil. And you're upset with us for pointing out the lies at the same time that you're calling people Satan. What am I accusing you of? Lying? Where is the evidence? No one in the history of the world has presented more evidence than Candace Owens. There's just so much evidence. And then you get caught with lies, debunk them. I show text messages, I show timelines, and they're just like, they concede the point, and then it's just over. They're like back to like, all she's doing is dreaming. All she's doing is dreaming. She hasn't showed us any proof whatsoever. What are we doing? Why do I feel like we're on a hamster wheel with these people? How much more evidence? I have presented so much more evidence than the FBI ever did against Tyler Robinson that they're the accusers. How about they convicted him when Erica said on stage, I forgive you. You're forgiving him, which implies that he's guilty. So who is the accuser? Who is the liar? Who is the person that you are saying is evil in all of this? The person trying to find out who killed Charlie Kirk, who's willing to sit down publicly with all of you at the same time if you'd like, for as long as you'd like. Or is the people that are engaged in a cover-up, lying to the public and gaslighting the public because they have a lot of money, people that are firing employees without cause through some loyalty tests because they're talking to Uber drivers. You guys are behaving like you're guilty and like you can spend it away to hide that. So if you have good intentions and you are a well-meaning person, if you are a well-meaning pastor, I don't know what it takes now to be a pastor. It seems like all you have to do is have some feelings and like a few proverbs. But if you are well-intended, I don't see why you wouldn't take me up on the invite to come on the show. I extend it to you. Again, I've done it multiple times, but I extend it to you and any of your homies at TPUSA to come on the show. You should be able to embarrass me. It's very easy, by the way, to sit down with a liar. That's like fun. When someone's lying through their teeth, the truth doesn't fear sitting down with a lie. So let me know if you'd like to do it. Anyway, guys, I do want to also touch briefly before I get to some of your comments on this Don Lemon arrest. Like objectively, no, I should say subjectively, it's funny. Of course it's funny. Don Lemon, the idea of Don Lemon being in prison is funny. But objectively, him being put in prison because Pam Bondi wanted a headline. Pam Bondi, can we get the Epstein files? Yes or no? Like, can you actually arrest some of these people in society that are harming children? I feel like right now, the DOJ has become like that show Reno 911. Is that what it is? It's called Reno 911. I think it's called Reno 911. It all just feels really fake and ridiculous. People are dressed up and they're like knocking down doors. You got Kristi Noem knocking down doors and she's got long extensions and makeup and like, we're back, and Pam Bondi's like, and we're here to arrest the people that criticize Zionism on college campuses. And now we're like going after Don Lemon because, in case you missed the backstory of this, Don Lemon is annoying. He's been annoying his entire life. And should you go to prison for being annoying your entire life? Maybe. In a sane world, when I'm the dictator of the United States, yeah, maybe. But we don't live in that world right now, okay? We live in a world where journalists are allowed to be annoying, and they were basically upset because what's happening in Minnesota is a bunch of protesters figured out that there is a pastor that works with ICE, right? And so they've gone in to protest his church. And Don Lemon sort of went around and started asking a bunch of questions. But Don Lemon in general doesn't love church and doesn't love Christians. As we figured this out when he was speaking to me of like, what do you think about homosexual marriage? You know, he's got some chips on his shoulder about it in general. So he's there generally to be annoying. There's no excuse for Don Lemon. But the arrest of him after, and we can show you a clip of him here at this protest, is pure theater. It is pure FBI, DOJ, look over here theater, because we have actually been inefficient the entire time that we've been in office. We are actually doing nothing but trying to grab headlines rather than to actually solve crimes that are being committed mostly by us, okay? This is the clip of Don Lemon just being Don Lemon at this church and being annoying, generally speaking.
We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus, because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world, is Jesus Christ.
I want to be very respectful. Please don't push me, though.
We're here to worship Jesus.
Yes.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why we're here. Okay. That's what we're about.
Don't you think Jesus would be understanding
we're about
and love these folks?
We're about spreading the love of Jesus.
But did you try to talk to them as a Christian?
No one is willing to talk.
Okay.
I have to take care of my church and my family, so I asked that you actually would also leave this building.
You don't want us to chronicle what happened?
Unless you're here to worship.
I'm always worship. I'm a Christian.
We're here to worship.
Yeah.
We're here to worship. Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So that's one of the pastors of the church. And it's kind of loud, so I can't hear him. But they're still there.
Yeah, this is annoying. Like, Don Lemon, obviously his head belongs in a toilet. He deserves a swirly. And if you elect me dictator, I will do it. I promise to do that. But in the meantime, Pam Bondi trying to grab headlines, who's equally as annoying and who also kind of needs a swirly. If we're being honest, they both kind of need a swirly. Oh, we're not doing this for Christianity. Shut up, Pam Bondi. Just shut up, okay? You protected Jeffrey Epstein. If you never speak again, that would be fine. We would all be okay with that. You know, at the end of the day, we know what this is. Everything, literally everything, is fake and gay. So we'll take a brief break and I'll come back and answer some of your comments. All right, you guys, it seems like censorship is back. It's happening everywhere. Platforms are controlling narratives and pushing the stuff that they want us to see. Rumble is one of the only companies that has stood the test of time. My show is there, and they were the only place to have my back when I got demonetized over here on YouTube. Not only is Rumble challenging big tech censorship, but now they have introduced something that will give us protection from the big banks that are shutting us out. Banks have the power to cancel our accounts and freeze our cards, which is why Rumble has launched Rumble Wallet. With a Rumble Wallet, you control your money. Not a bank, not a government, not a tech company, not even Rumble can touch it. It's not only a wallet to buy and save, but it also allows you to support your favorite creators by easily super chatting with the click of a button. There will be no fees when you tip my channel or others, and we actually receive the super chat instantly, unlike other platforms where we have to wait for payouts. So you can support my show and other creators by clicking the tip button on my Rumble channel or by visiting wallet.rumble.com. That's wallet.rumble.com. Also want to tell you guys about Paleovalley because something that my team and I are always craving are their beef sticks. Paleovalley makes their meat sticks with 100% grass-fed beef sourced from small-scale regenerative American farms, so you can feel good about what you are eating and what you're supporting. They've stripped out all the junk. There's no preservatives, gluten, soy, sugar, dairy, or GMOs, just clean, nutrient-dense fuel the way that food was intended to be. So whether you are road tripping, working late, or running around with the kids, these sticks deliver high-protein energy without the crash. Keto, paleo, carnivore, it does not matter. Paleovalley will work with your lifestyle, not against it. They come in multiple bold flavors, including original, jalapeno, summer sausage, maple bacon, teriyaki. So there's really something for everyone. With over 55 million beef sticks sold, Paleovalley is trusted, proven, and backed by a 60-day money-back guarantee. Right now, you can get 20% off your first order at paleovalley.com, and you can use code Candace at checkout. Again, that's paleovalley.com with promo code Candace at checkout. All right, you guys, we have new merch on the website. You can go to CandaceOwens.com and buy some of our new merch. We have the sweatshirt that I am wearing. I told the priest that I would chill. I always do, and I always mean it. And it's actually probably better for me to speak to him more often than not because sometimes I really don't chill. But I'm getting better. I do think I'm getting better, if you guys agree. I think, right? We also have the hard copy autographed bundle, which is now available in the shop as well. That's Make Him a Sandwich and Blackout, both hand-signed by me. And we have merged our subscription tiers into one Club Candace tier for $11.99 a month or $120 for the year. Okay, top comment from last episode. This person writes, and this is obviously my sit down with Bassem Youssef. This person writes, "Hi, I'm from Switzerland, convert Muslim woman here. We have been lied to about Islam in the West. If you want to know more about the true picture, I highly recommend you bring on Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, a great Muslim American scholar. Lots of love. God bless you." We have definitely, at the very least, been lied to about all the terrorism. Obviously, now we know the CIA and the Mossad trains all of these radicals. If you really get into the story of like Osama bin Laden and all of these people that were CIA agents, then suddenly were against America and the West. It happens over and over again, too many times for us to remain foolish about that fact. I mean, who do you guys think funded Hamas? Bibi Netanyahu did, obviously. They fund terror and then they take advantage of terrorist attacks that they funded. I think that's pretty obvious, and that Bassem Youssef did a good job describing that. Julia writes, "Portraying devotion to Christ, but telling consistent lies gives me holier than thou vibes. Charlie said lying is like suicide to the soul." Love you, Candace. Thank you for the truth. I totally agree, but it is so much worse. Like I said, and I've been saying this a lot, I rather people who honestly hate me making videos, speaking about me, doing whatever. But when you pretend that you're doing this as a pastor or somebody who's a godly woman, and you use biblical verses to try to persuade people to go after people that you perceive to be enemies, typically for purely political reasons or purely financial reasons, someone's paying you to do that, special place in hell reserved for you, truly. I feel that way. It's just, God will not be mocked. That's all I'm going to say. DJ Mirko, it was this actually like 50 Cent here. This person's, "Hi, Candace. Ye tweeted out a photo icon." They gave a really big tip here of St. Moses the Black several years ago. And the momentum that Ye created by this post finally culminated in a film being released this Friday. Please give this redemption-themed film a quick shout out. I have no idea what this film is. My producer is putting a note here saying that it's a modern retelling of St. Moses the Black that's based in Chicago. 50 Cent is the executive producer and Wiz Khalifa is in it. Me and 50 Cent should sit down in general because I see the memes of 50 Cent and Candace Owens. I see them. They're good. They're fun. And so 50 Cent, if you are watching, let's make this happen. We should just do this for the world and just go at each other. I think that's what needs to happen. Titus writes, "Now we are over the target. God bless you, Candace, and thank you for your bravery." John Heinschel writes, "JFK was a Catholic and Charlie was at a minimum Catholic curious." By the way, just to pause before I even finish what you wrote here, that annoys me so much too about the amount of smoke that I had to deal with. He wasn't a Catholic, nor the funded campaigns. And then low key, and then you're telling the person you're sitting with, who's giving you the relics, of how much Charlie just like to love to be in here and prayer and all of this stuff. It's just so there's so many lies. There are so many lies. Anyways, to continue reading, this person continues with, "Boy, these Zionists really don't like Catholics. Also, grieving widows don't have to lie regardless of how they are behaving. Mrs. Kirk is not just behaving inappropriately; she's behaving suspiciously. I agree that it is always suspicious to tell a lie. That is what makes people go, that's not right. That's what made me go, For me, when I saw her and Andrew Colbert colluding after she told me they were getting rid of Andrew Colbert and replacing him, and then I realized he's the one organizing the Paramount Tactical and also the Alex Jones, which I've now confirmed with people that they fired for no reason, that it was Andrew Colbert the whole time. So why did Erica lie to me? Why are we lying to Candace? Why are you lying to Candace? Anyway, Stephanie writes, I received my TPUSA hat today, LOL, most likely only because of the leaked call and the attention brought to the contract wording, if you will, regarding supplying the hats versus a plastic bracelet that said, we are Charlie Kirk. Your credibility is at 100. Thank you. Yeah, I got a lot of emails of people that never even received the hat, and now they are suddenly receiving them. So that's good. Eamon Cullen writes, there is a reason for everything. We now see why Trump 45 and 47 got in. Without 45, 47, Charlie and you would not have been able to expose the truth. Watching this shows where we are in our Lord's plan. Peace is on the way. Christ is king. Keep going. Domax. And I agree. I shared that sentiment with this woman that I was speaking to. I was like, you know what's crazy? I do think it all happened for a reason. It's the same way that I say, like, I'm so grateful that I worked for PragerU and Turning Point USA and Daily Wire, because even though I was blinded in many ways at the time to what now feels like, oh, it's just in the belly of the beast, as Bassem Youssef was saying yesterday, I had to kind of be in there to see how it works. And I think similarly, she had to be there at that time because it moved her to then email me when she saw this strange lie coming from Andrew Colbert about the Catholic faith. And by the way, another thing that I found out, I have so many things I'm mad about that I'm now learning from the people that were wrongly fired at Turning Point USA. So the whole thing that Erica told me in my face about that was it was crazy at that time. And Andrew Colbert again went rogue in that interview with Alex Clark. Not true. Try again. Another lie that she told me. Because the reality is he was texting her throughout that interview. You know, it's like badly cut. And he was in communication with her during that interview, according to the person that worked in Andrew Colbert's office that no longer does. So I got to go back and just now track how many lies I was told, because I'm getting the information from the people that were on the inside. Anyways, Mama Essa writes, I love Nimi. My faves are the Buzzin' Bee Balm and the For Lips and the Elbows Body Wash and Butter. It smells divine. Talos and serums. I love your sass and your sarcasm and humor too. Thanks for cracking me up while being great. And full of poise and grace and kindness and dignity, strength and beauty, from Contessa. Thank you, Mama Essa Contessa. And yeah, I actually do love the tallow. The tallow cream is really nice. Totally Awesome writes, Candace, will you please tell us more about Charlie Kirk's children, parents, and Eric Kirk's father and half-sister? Also, people think I'm nuts for listening to you, but we don't know, but we know. What I would say, children are off limits, always. Children are innocent and they should be protected. And every chance that I get, that seems for me to just not be a topic that I want to cover. Those are Charlie's children. But speaking about Erica's background, I told you that we have a week break coming up, not next week, but the week after. And during that week, we'll get things together and have 2 episodes, just kind of a profile focus, separating fact from fiction. Joanne Monzo writes, I watched the Rabbi Barclay interview after you mentioned it yesterday. Just wow. My skin was crawling, but I could not stop watching him bury himself in his own psycho babble. Thank you for all that you do, Candace Christ is King. Honestly, it's a journey. You're just like, oh, you're just a Jewish supremacist. That's like, he's like, no, we better than you. Oh, don't you understand? You must worship us at all times. That's what you're getting wrong. The only thing that matters is us. We are the people we love the most, and you must worship us. And I was just like trying to take notes and really understand things. And that probably was part of the beginning of the end of my support for Zionism, as I now believe that it is a objectively racist philosophy. I don't see how anybody could argue that. And most don't. They just whine on the internet, but they don't want to actually sit down and have a debate about those things. Lastly, nope. I think I got everything here. Yeah, I got everything. We are good. All right, you guys, we will see you on Monday.